Okay, let's talk about knee stabilization in both the transverse and the frontal planes. Now, the transverse plane is essentially the rotational plane. So think about like a sidearm thrower, the plane that they rotate in, that is the transverse plane. The frontal plane, that's something like a lateral jump. So that's kind of the side-to-side plane. So we're going to talk first about the transverse plane, and that's what you're going to be able to see from a front or a back view on an athlete. And essentially what we're looking at, let me play through his delivery real quick, just so you can see the whole thing. We're looking at if upon landing that knee continues to bow out towards the side, or if it stabilizes upon front foot contact. So this particular athlete, he lands with quite a bit of knee flexion, and this is his position at the front foot strike. So let's track what happens to the knee from this point on. Now you can see that knee continues to move up until right about this frame. So nearly into maximum layback, his front knee is still moving. And that represents a massive energy leak because what's happening is he's not able to brace every sequential link in the chain and direct all of that energy up through each segment and into the arm, into the ball. He's still creating a bleed of energy when all of that should be transferring its way up the chain. So again, ideally we want to see this knee plant firm, and then from a front or back view, that knee should not continue to move. So this is transverse plane knee stabilization, and this is an example of that not going so well. You can see kind of this very extreme angle of the front knee. All right, let's look at a side view. This is the same athlete. He doesn't struggle nearly as much from the frontal plane, but I'm still gonna kind of use it as an illustration point. So two things to point out. First, the knee flexion angle is an important piece to consider. Typically, you want to see a little bit larger knee flexion angle. So he's landing maybe 100, 110 degrees for this knee flexion angle. Usually we'll want to see about 130, 140 degrees. So when you get too close to 90 degrees on this flexion angle, it's very hard to actually create a lateral blocking force and a blocking effect of the front leg. So he's a little bit too close to 90 degrees on that front knee position. But what you'll see with a lot of particularly low-level throwers is upon landing, we want to make sure that this shin doesn't travel any further forward than it does right at front foot strike. So from here, as he rotates, that knee shouldn't travel at all. And obviously the camera is moving a little bit, but you can tell that knee does not continue to leak forward, at least in this plane. You'll see that knee continue to shoot forward over the toe, maybe end up out here in, particularly, youth athletes, lower level high school athletes. Tends to be a very, very massive energy leak. I mean, you really won't see guys throwing even into the mid 80s most of the time when they have a major leak like that. So that's a pretty big red flag if they have a frontal plane stabilization issue with that knee. But even though he doesn't have that, he's still landing with more of a knee flexion angle, or less of a knee flexion angle than I'd like to see. A little bit too close to 90 degrees there. So that is knee stabilization in both the frontal and in the transverse plane. Hopefully that made sense. Let us know if you have any questions.